Hoosier Triplets, a trio of Indiana authors road tripping through the romance genre and sharing what we love and learn. Welcome to our podcast.
If you write a sexy story about one of their products, and I'm like, well, who are they? And I looked at, they made the freaking vibrator. So I wrote a story about a woman, and I wrote a story about the vibrator, which I thought was quite good. And
was it an anthropomorphic vibrator, like it?
No, it was Hello Kitty doing her business.
Okay.
And I didn't win, but
multiple.
Someone said, because everybody was very helpful, like, Luann and Janice Maynard and Jules Bennett, everybody was so helpful in those days. They said, well, there's this new little company, XOXO Publishing in Toronto, and they're looking for novellas, super sexy stuff. So I cleaned it up a little bit, sent it in, they bought it. Hello Kitty is it was so I came back like the next year, 2010, I'm a published author after one time here. And when we got to write, when they asked me to write this BDSM book, I'm thinking, I'm going to write, the woman had no name in Hello Kitty. She just appeared with her lover and this happened. And I thought, that's her. I'm going to write about her journey. And the Hello Kitty vibrator is one of the stories. She goes through a few men till she finds the person she's supposed to be.
But is the Hello Kitty vibrator like the constant companion?
No, but it's referenced.
Okay.
It's significant in one part of the book. I didn't want to make it all about a vibrator, because I was like, there's some other stuff. There are handcuffs. There was, some other good BDSM stuff in there, but it wasn't really, because I went to a session with Ann Mayburn at an RWA, and it was all sub-dom stuff and talking about it, and I thought, just close your notebook up, Debbie. You are so out of your element. You don't ever admit that you wrote out of control. And it was called a light BDSM, not because there's no such thing. And just sit here and be like, and try not to have your face go, because it was very enlightening. But I thought, I'm out of my element here. I'm just
we had an RWA meeting one time that, honest to God,
set the stage. They moved us to the room that was right on the other side of the children's area
at a library.
And there was just a door. And at one point during the presentation, somebody on the other side was trying to get in, so we're trying to bar the door while she's talking about.
And we had one member that I knew from the time it started.
Had all the stuff
I knew she was going to be a problem. So the whole time, and the lady that's presenting it is actually, she is good friends with someone in the lifestyle and an author, and had been to clubs, and I mean, she could explain the nerve system reaction. All this. This woman, literally throughout the first 30 minutes, was like, and the whole time. I mean, it's just like you are embarrassed. And then they were talking about something. Maybe it was the
somebody else. Oh, was it when somebody else was sharing their experience?
And she's like, "Why would you do that?" I mean, it was so rude.
It's like, man, did you not know where you were?
Yeah. Did you not know the topic that we were covering? Because we made it pretty clear.
She kept saying she couldn't believe that normal people would act that way.
And so on the break, I'm like,
what's normal?
You
who are you to define it?
Take it off.
And
she's
really,
like,
right?
Well, and I'm like, I gotta tell you, you are over the line rude. And she's like, and I'm like, okay,
get up and
we're all very clear. Yeah. You can't.
We did not chain you to the. We didn't chain you to the church.
Yeah.
You might like it, but we also didn't chain you to the church, so you can leave if you don't.
It was absolutely. I mean, I felt so terrible for the presenter, who gave fabulous information, and then one of our members who was very shy, and pretty closed down about her family life, shared a story about a family member, and this other woman was just acting a fool. And it was just like, this is, I'm like, this is why I hate 95% of you. This is why literally someday I am going to punch somebody during a meeting. But it was just,
it is. It's mind-boggling. You start talking about things, and we're romance writers. You're all romance readers or romance writer wannabes, and we're pretty clear about things. You know, I mean, one of my books has got handcuffs on the cover, so duh.
Yeah, there's
You
no
know,
handcuffs.
it's not a police novel.
All
You
you
know,
have to do is go on Amazon and start looking at the.
Mhm.
If you bought this, you might like this, and see all the different subgenres and sub genres, and then or take a visit over to the dark romance. You know, I mean, you know, let's be honest. And I think in this day and age, almost anything goes. I mean, and there's probably a book about it.
And I think
Wasn't there a book you read? Didn't somebody who wrote like a hamster shifter?
oh no. We were here back when RAGT. Well, I didn't come from the beginning. I started coming in 2009, and the boardrooms were all publishers or something like that, and so you could get pitch sessions. But they'd also be talking about their product, their books would be in there, and there'd be, swag was great. I mean, it was so cool. And we went in, I think it was probably Luann and I, because we would get into trouble together. And we went in, and I don't remember what the initial topic was, or what the topic was supposed to be. I think it was trends. I think it was trends in publishing, or where things were going, and they were talking about shape-shifting. You know, that was very big then. It was everybody was in love with the wolves and dogs. Wolves and dogs were the thing. There was not cats, it was wolves and dogs. And I remember there was a series set on Long Island. It was a family of shifters, and they were dogs. And I loved that series. I can't remember who wrote it or whatever. So Luann and I are sitting there, and I don't write shapeshifters. She doesn't. I liked reading what I read then. And they were saying, oh, you know, we get some really interesting submissions, you know. And then the two editors start laughing. We just recently got a submission for hamster shapeshifters. And there's kind of like this little bit of a so then Luann and I look at each other. We used to drink a lot of like spiked iced tea while we were here.
I like it that she's like pushing it off on the alcohol,
Yeah, no.
but I know her.
And we kind of look at each other, and we're tittering a little bit, because at that time was also the thing about people using hamsters and inserting them in
The
certain
Richard
places.
Gere
Yeah,
one,
they're
right?
even
Yeah, that whole
Yeah.
thing. And we just tittered a little bit, and they kind of looked over at us, and they had been trying, and it just the room just, and we're all like, what? Who would think of that? And they would say, we can't even tell you. We can't tell you what the pitch was, because, you know, what if somebody else buys it and you read it and then you realize this is this book we were.
Or what if you steal the idea?
Right.
But see,
And
I
listen,
there's somebody who just released one where
I
it's
gotta
like
tell
a
you.
seed shifter.
I
Like he
hear
shifts into a
the
plant.
word hamster, and my
Yeah.
mind
Okay.
immediately goes
Right.
to hamster shapeshifters.
I love it.
It was a moment, and it,
Well,
you know,
if that's your yum.
Yeah.
Listen, I have a friend in Saratoga who wrote a whole series of shapeshifter novels and used African animals, and so the lion was really cool. The elephant I was having a little trouble with. I'm like, elephants smell. So when the guy shifts back, has he lost that elephant pee smell?
What do you think lions smell like?
Didn't think I
Yeah,
I stood
there's
next-
a lot of smell going
Your
on.
father and you
Animals.
were up on an elephant, if you recall, and it peed almost to my foot. So I got a really good whiff of elephant pee. I've not been that close to a lion to get
Well,
a whiff
why
of
not?
lion pee.
Your mother was damaged. Can you not tell?
Terribly. I'm so sorry. Meanwhile, I was like, I mean, there's a picture of me, and I'm looking like the little princess of the world, like
so happy.
on this elephant, like yes, like
This is awesome.
yeah.
I've never put a lot of thought into the way the shifter smells, like before or after.
I guess part of the shifting must be that you just totally, everything goes off, and you're now your human form.
I think if you've
Except
suspended
feels.
reality
Yeah.
to the point of like somebody shifting, you can spend it.
Well,
I
I
said,
thought
you wouldn't want to be
Really
running
That
around
would
as-
be
as
interesting to
like
at least like
wolf or
have a
something that
bad
smell like
shifter
human,
be
because
like
everybody-
mangy
Right, yeah.
and smelly.
Have that like scar look to it.
Yeah.
My shifters, when they go back to their human form, if they pick in their minds, if they picture clothes, they are fully dressed. And I did that only because I did not want to mess with, like, what do we do with the naked guy? How's he going to find clothes? I'm not going to have my hot ass alpha shifters with a bag around their neck with their clothes, you know, when they're traveling miles. So I was like, okay, this is magical. I'm going to wear sweatpants.
I think that's
Yeah,
money.
that's
I
their
think
shifters,
that's
is
money.
that they just have their
I
clothes
think that's
in the
brilliant.
Yeah.
You know?
So your wolves have a little bit of conjuring magic.
They're conjurers.
Oh,
Oh, your
the-
favorite.
Not the I'm reading this. It's
You're still reading it?
No, but the
Okay.
new one just came out. But this woman, it's women's fiction paranormal.
Okay.
You know, so slow burn. But anyway, so this town has a year-round haunted house, but it's actually run by paranormals. And this woman, her car dies. She gets a room at this hotel. She decides that in order to pay to have her car fixed, she's got to find a job. So she goes and she looks at this message board and she's thinking, oh, I really hope there's some job. And she finds it. Well, it turns out she's magical and she's a conjurer, which I mean, it's a brilliant idea for the author, but anytime there's any kind of in the locked room, she just conjures her way out of it. You know, she needs to know how this man died. Conjured, here's a hammer. I mean, it's just, you know, I'm like, okay. You know, I'm like, you know, I'm all for using things, but this is just sort of easy.
It just feels a little cheating.
Yeah.
It's like when you read a mystery novel and and I'm terrible. I never write mystery because I have to read the last page. I don't know who did it till the end. And you're reading the mystery novel and there's this guy and there's that woman and there's this and this happens here and this is it. And you get to the end and some person who's never been in the book before appears and is the murderer.
This is what this lady does, this author did, and she also, whoever gets murdered is somebody that is introduced 3 pages earlier, and they're always at a bakery, a bar, a restaurant, and they're nasty. And then they get killed. And then we don't know who kills them. And then it turns out it's somebody's cousin's best friend's uncle.
Is somebody working through their food server trauma?
You're right. I feel like she has maybe 3 books she really, really loves. And she just twists your, this one, this idea, and this
New name,
idea.
different bakery.
Yeah.
He was blonde, now he's a brunette. Maybe we should take a pause and do an introduction. Since we just
We got to do our podcast.
started.
Okay.
Jumped right in.
I did.
I told you.
Okay, you want to rock, paper, scissors over who does this?
You do it.
You do it.
Okay, all right. So obviously this is kind of straight
we
from your
recording?
website, but I have been recording. First I took a picture, and so we talked for about 10 minutes with no recording, and then I was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" So I figured it out. So anyway, Morgan Malone is an erudite yet brazen hussy who left her career as an administrative law judge and counsel to pursue her great love, writing. She lives in Saratoga County, New York, with her rescue diva dog, Princess. Still? Princess?
No, Princess
Aw.
passed.
Sorry.
So now I have an outdoor nature refuge in my backyard because now I am the woman who buys tons of bird seed and the stuff that squirrels like too. So yes,
Okay, all right, so scratch that, sorry.
that's okay.
She travels, paints watercolors, plays mahjong still.
Yes.
Okay. And arbitrates employment contract disputes in between writing romance and memoir. She has published a variety of romance books with a variety of heat levels, mostly contemporary, although a pirate trilogy is in the works. Still,
We're on book 3.
We're on book 3. All right, pirate trilogy, almost done. And she and she also writes romantic memoir, which I'm going to go to. The OG of Seasoned Romance. And frequently gives workshops about later in life love stories because if you're over 25, maybe your book boyfriend should be too.
That's
Which
right.
I love that concept.
That's a quote from Roxanne St. Clair. You're over 20, what is it? It's, you're not 25 any longer. Maybe your book boyfriend shouldn't be either. So we took a play on it. She's like, you can kind of use it. Back in the day when we first kind of hooked up with her, and that was one of the starts of Seasoned Romance.
Okay. So let's talk Seasoned Romance.
Absolutely.
So you started writing after your husband passed?
I've been writing for a long time.
Okay.
My husband passed when we were 35.
Okay.
So, but I was published when I was in the 2nd grade and then never again. But I read romance constantly. I read it from the time I was 12 and my mother let me have Gone with the Wind, and it's been my favorite genre, most of the various variations of it. And I was always noodling with ideas. And then I ended up retiring at 55, and shortly after that walked into a bookstore and there was a writing class. And I thought, I write like a lawyer and that doesn't fit in the romance genre. So it was a memoir class and I was like, shoot, what am I going to write about? Well, I was dating in my 50s. And just like, as I said, I'm 50. I wonder if anybody would want to go out with a 50-year-old woman with a little gray hair and a few wrinkles and stuff. And 80 men later,
I was
and
gonna say that's a big yes.
3 marriage proposals and a variety of adventures. I had stories, so I started writing them in this writing class, and lost my lawyer tone.
You didn't do heretofore.
Heretofore, but apparently that.
Oh.
We lawyers like to use the word that, and that does not translate well to the flow of fiction writing. So I had to learn to drop that. And the other thing is semicolons.
Oh, yes.
We love our semicolons, and my editor loves M dashes. So I get a few semicolons. So, and I'm starting to write, and I've got 2 children who are the age of a lot of the heroes and heroines in like the Harlequin romances, or a lot of the popular romances. These like 21-year-olds, and then I thought, oh no, I can't.
Can't have that couple be getting down and dirty when
And I had an image in. It's just kind of convoluted. Leah went to a private girls' school, and she was a day student. So a lot of times her classes were running into the evening. So I would, and she had to get a ride home. So I would drive down from our home in Saratoga County to Emma Willard School in Troy. And I was listening to the radio station last night. Somebody was talking about Led Zeppelin. Megan was talking about Led Zeppelin, and it was all Led Zeppelin. And I'm trying to find stations, and I come across the Country Channel and our station, and they're playing "Crying, Lovin' or Leavin'." And I'm listening to some of the songs, and there was a song called "That Summer" by Garth Brooks, and it was about a lonely widow woman. And I thought, oh, I kind of like, this guy's cool. And I started listening to country, and I got this image of this country singer, and I wanted to write a romance about him. And I'm Jewish. There weren't at that time a lot of Jewish characters in romance novels. So I created this woman who was born in Saratoga, and she was a writer. She wrote for Rolling Stone, and they got thrown together on a tour. So I started playing with that even before I retired. And then once I retired and I was writing the memoirs, and came here and pitched Cocktails, which was the name of my romance dating memoir.
And everybody should buy it and read it. It's great.
Thank you. I still have people come up to me and say, I read this book and it changed my life, or I need to buy this book because my sister got divorced and is wondering about dating. But it was the entree. Okay. And then.
And as a memoir, it's true. It's nonfiction, right?
It's absolutely true. And when I was writing it in my writing class, and I did some stupid stuff. Your daughter's sitting here. I can't say some of the things, but she's been to some readings where I've read some of the funnier stories. There's a lot of humor in it, but I did some stupid things, and there were some sad things, and there's some really lovely things. There's some sexy things. It's not real graphic, but I was dating. I was reading this, so I wrote this book, and this is great, and it's a good book for, I think even now, for people who are interested in getting back in the genre, except the thing about, like, don't wear pantyhose on your first date if you think you're going to have sex, because who wears pantyhose anymore? Apparently no one.
They're going to be like, what are those?
Yeah, nobody, right? Nobody wears pantyhose anymore.
British royal women.
Yes, that's about it. So, yeah. So that's where it started.
But they just wear the ones that come up to here, so it doesn't matter.
And, I was 50 at the time. I was 55. So I wrote what I was comfortable writing at that point.
So then from there you springboarded to romance, and were you always seasoned romance, or did you try and do the...
No, I wanted, my first book, the country series, they were 36. Okay,
but that was considered
that was
old.
Yeah. I pitched that at different RWAs and RTs, and where there were people interested in books and trying to get a contract, and they were like, ooh, sex in your 30s? Ooh, I remember this one editor was like maybe 22, and I'm thinking, okay then. But I thought, you know what, look, I had the luxury of, I didn't need to write to make a living. I had my retirement and I was doing arbitrations. Writing was my love. It wasn't what was putting bread on the table. So I thought to myself, I'm going to write what I'm comfortable with. I'm going to write about women who have maybe a wrinkle or two, or a stretch mark from a baby, or they're worrying about a little gray hair or whatever, and men who are of a certain age. And because that's what I felt comfortable with, and I really thought that it was important to represent that part of the population. And if they weren't going to be bestsellers, that was fine, because, as I said, it was not feeding up my family. And then some things started happening. One of the things, well, Turquoise Morning Press bought that book. They bought cocktails. Then they asked me to write a 50 Shades of Grey type book for an anthology. And that was Katerina, who was 40-ish. She was a war widow, and she explored her getting back into a dating and romance mode by dating different men, all of whom had a certain proclivity for control. And so I have a 40-ish woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then they asked about, did I have anything else? And I mentioned the country singer book, 36. So these were my 3 books that were through Turquoise Morning Press. Unfortunately, they closed right before Unanswered Prayers was published, and that's when I decided to switch over, and I published it independently.
I want you to talk about going to, my own experience with you was at RT, because we had met the year before here at RAGT.
Yes.
And we had talked about, at that time it wasn't even called Seasoned Romance, we were just called older people.
Mm-hmm.
And we had talked about it, and then we were at RT Kansas City?
No,
Atlanta?
it was Dallas or Vegas?
Vegas.
Okay.
And you were, I'm going to use the word, hounding in the best possible way, publishers about what's the holdup. And you were on the forefront of not just talking about it in women's groups or among groups of readers, but actually in their face saying you're missing the boat, people, and you have talented writers that have great stories. And believe me, the 22-year-old freshly graduated co-ed with the 48-year-old billionaire, brilliant, computer genius, those don't work. They don't work. But you were on the forefront of pushing seasoned romance. I remember even the timing of starting to call it seasoned romance.
Well, that's exactly when it started to change, is that, and I wasn't the only one. I was writing that, and I would go in and pitch Unanswered Prayers, or I would pitch the sequel to Cat, and my characters at that time were maybe 40-ish, 35, 40-ish, and then pushing it up toward that. And like I said to you earlier, had an editor go, ooh, sex in your 30s? And I'm thinking, honey, what? Excuse me for saying this, some of the best sex I ever had in my life was in my 50s, so hello.
Entangled told me that
exactly
nothing interesting happens to anyone over 27, and I got up and left.
And then they were all excited because we'll jump ahead, as we started to move forward and expand, they came out with their autumn line, where you could be 35 to 40. So it was.
And they were talking about empty nesters. It's like
I don't know a lot of
math
40.
isn't mathing.
I mean, but here's one of there were 2 breakthroughs for me. Dr. Dotter and I went to the Emerald City Romance Conference in Seattle, and I was on a panel. 2018, was it?
Yeah, I think so.
2018. I was on a seasoned romance panel. I think they had asked, do you have anything you want to talk about? And I always would throw that out. And I brought the names, and now I have totally forgotten the names of the other 2 women who were in the panel with me. And we were talking. There were a lot. I mean, the room was full. Wasn't the ballroom, but the room was full. People talking about it, how they wanted to read these stories. And one of the women there was an author. She was also either a board member or very active in RWA National. And she said, when we go to the next national, I'm going to raise it at the General Assembly meeting, we said, great, we got to do this. We got to push this forward. We segued in to Karen Booth. Karen Booth and was really pushing seasoned romance, created the seasoned romance Facebook page. We had 200 members, now it's 7,000. And she was pushing it because she was writing, I want to say Harlequin, and she wanted to write older characters, and so she was branching off and going to publish them either independently or with someone else. I think the big catalyst was Roxanne St. Clair, who was tremendously popular, had a huge fan following. had started a series called Barefoot Bay. Created this island down off the coast of Naples in Florida and had populated it. And she was writing trilogies. These three brothers, or these three this or that, and there's a resort, and they were related. And then she wrote a trilogy, and the heroes were silver foxes. And the guys on the cover had a little gray hair, drop dead, gorgeous guys. And they were 50, 55. Like I remember one, they were coming back for their 25th high school reunion, run into the girl from their past, and was very popular. And we started using the term silver foxes, and we were using, you're not 25 anymore, maybe your book boyfriend shouldn't be either. And that time there was another phenomenon called Kindle World, where authors with very popular series who couldn't keep up with reader demand were opening up their world to other authors. And she invited me in, and Judy Kentris, who's here, and I think several other people were invited in to fill out the world. And I focused on writing Silver Foxes, because I thought, why not? She's opened the door. So my first book, Shoulder to Lean On, the characters are 50. And then the next book, they're 55, and the hero on the cover has white hair. And it moved from there. We did a seasoned romance workshop with her at an RWA, was it San Diego?
I think so.
I think it was San Diego. The room was full. The room was full. And that's where it really started to go. It really started, and it was at that RWA that one of the women who was with us at Emerald City got up and spoke, because that was when, you may remember, the whole diversity issue was slapping RWA in the face. But it's more about racial diversity. They talked about disabled people, and this woman stood up. There were three of us sitting, and she stood up, and she started talking about another diversity issue, which was ageism, that was being practiced certainly by the industry and by everybody. Nobody at our RWA was talking about. There was no support anywhere. And Damon Suede, I remember, was on the panel, and I just love Damon Suede, was on the panel, and we talked afterwards about it. And he was like, I said, look, just do this. You've got some other big issues. Yes, there's a lot of issues RWA is facing right now. I understand that. But you know what? When you're facing all of these other issues about opening RWA up and really making it represent all the women, all the people in this country, hello. Look at me. I got blonde over my gray hair. Hello. And then we started doing research. I think Karen did some, passed some numbers on to me. I was starting to do some research. And if you look, the largest group of romance books buyers are 45 to 60.
Yeah, so all you're doing is skewing the characters more toward the actual reader demographic.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the people who have the most money and are buying the most romance novels are 45 to 60. Now, there may be, and because of the popularity of what's out there, tons of them are buying romances of 21-year-olds. And I think that's great. I think there should be romances of 18 and 21-year-olds. But that doesn't mean there shouldn't be romances of older characters. Last year I wrote my oldest characters as part of my last of my trilogy for the Dickens holiday romance books, and it was my Lockets of Love book, and the characters are 70 in their 70s. Yeah. And it's a happy for now, because they're like, don't know, but people are getting more interested.
It can't be a happily ever after, because it's just a short ever.
Well, one was a divorcee, one was a widower, and weren't sure but they committed.
Yeah.
And that's where they were happy. And I have a friend and her husband they married later, and they each have their own houses, and they go back and forth. His is downtown, hers is out near in a wooded area, and they go back, and it's a perfect relationship. There's no reason why they shouldn't live the way they do.
Well, I'm seeing the shift, and this is in cozy mysteries and also romance and women's fic, because it used to be the grandma or the grandpa character. They were always like this zany comedy relief. I mean, Nancy Ivanovich, is that One for the money.
Janet.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, grandma is the linchpin of the stories. But now I'm seeing more and more. Grandma's getting a boyfriend, and it's not funny. You know, we're not having like the whole side story where they lost his teeth or he took his teeth out when he wanted to eat her out or something. You know, now they're a little bit.
She knows what it means.
Yeah. I know, as soon as I did that, I was like, yeah, I know. The hands up, what can I do? The dramatic hand, see manicure.
They don't have that? Come on.
But they're now, the romances of the older characters are now less for the comedy, and more for the romance and the beauty of them, you know, getting together and negotiating that out, because I think personally as you get older, there's more negotiation about if we're going to continue on.
Yeah.
You know?
So I guess my question, and I'm gonna sound really naive and stupid, but what is, so let's talk about, I mean, I did write a seasoned romance trilogy because my characters were in their 40s, and I tried to be cognizant of the fact that when we're in our 40s, our bodies are not like when we're in, you know, our 20s and 30s, but what is kind of the how you write a seasoned romance? What do you need to take into consideration with those characters that you don't necessarily have to worry about with a 20-something character? Do you need to be more, you know, like, are you aware, do you have to concentrate on like the stretch marks, or are they just mentioned, or like, how does that tip the scale? Or do you just say, hey, they're in their 40s, and you just write it like any other character?
You could do that. I have my rock star and the country singer and the Rolling Stone. She's very sensitive because she has stretch marks, and her ex-husband had made fun of them, and so she was very hesitant. And my hero, the hero, was like basically bullshit. You have scars because you gave birth. I have scars because I was stupid and fell off a bronking, and football injuries. So they're scars of honor. And so I tried to deal with that. Sometimes somebody's like, you know, sucking it in. Oh, I'm not wearing, she's not wearing bikinis. She's wearing takinis. Sometimes I don't really get into a whole thing. I mean, it's somebody who is, especially in the sweet romances, the Hanukkah romances for Dickens, it really didn't have to get a lot into what fits where and how, because those were sweet, just a kiss. But I have to say, one of the variations we had was Leah and I were driving back from Maine, and she was like, and we had seen a wedding take place, a wedding picture take place out on the rocks, and Leah turned to me and said,
There's nobody I love enough to walk on rocks and hills.
That's just a right angle waiting to happen.
I was like, and she had like 9 bridesmaids.
Oh my god!
And I'm
gosh!
Like,
All I see is swept away as
these
shark
poor
food.
women, and I'm like, a good friend does not ask you to go spelunking
Who's the
in
good
heels
friend
and
here?
a gown.
Because it's not the bride.
Yeah.
and as is often the case with our road trips, all the way back from Maine, she said to me, you should write a novel. You haven't done anything about a woman who's like 40. She's gone through college and grad school. She's been working really hard. She's at the peak of her career. She's got a nice car. She's got a fabulous apartment. She's got disposable income. And I don't know if you said it or if I said it, she doesn't have anybody to dance a slow dance with at a wedding.
You said that, yeah.
So,
That's beautiful.
and so we created the I'll Never Say I Do Club, based upon this bride. The bride has her friends out on these damn rocks, and then they're all complaining about it.
She's really
and
just trying to kill them
the
all.
bride dares them to go online like she had by happenstance and find somebody, because they were such fabulous women, and they would meet the love of their life. And if they didn't, she would take everybody to Hawaii for New Year's Eve. So they figured, such a deal,
Win-win, exactly.
And so in those books, one of the women has a very bad scar. The other woman is voluptuous, and has one scene where she's kind of sucking it in because she's with this really hot Greek chef.
She's got her Spanx
So birth control is a different thing, but I have an editor who refuses to let me write a love scene unless I make some mention of the use of a condom. And I'm like, but there's ways to say it. They made when I love somebody else uses it and I use it. They made sure sex between them was safe, and I was like, all right, I can do that. But as you get further on, postmenopausal, you're not, the issue's not having children, so you have the talk.
Well, it's just, yes.
I have never been
I
since my husband died, and so
I'm clean, you're clean.
yeah, so
I don't know. I have a friend who
You
works
just do
in
it that way.
geriatric psych, and she says
It's rampant.
She said it's like a college dorm room around here. It is.
But I mean, I think too, as you mature and your body mature, you also then have to talk about the lubrication. You might need to talk about the lubrication.
Well, and the lack of you're not a gymnast when you're in your 40s and 50s. Even if you were a gymnast, I just okay, 2 new hips. Yeah, I'm not a gymnast anymore. So we don't necessarily bend the way we used to.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, new hip, that leg is just not going to do certain things anymore.
Yeah.
No way. Or the back. When some people write love scenes, the sex scenes, where it's like this got put here and there, and this is this, and it's all about what's going where and the mechanics of it. I'd say my sex scenes are more. I use descriptive terms, and I call organs certain, parts of the body by
flower.
No, I don't. I've not used the flower. I might have used it in one of the pirate books because that was the language was used, but no, it's usually another pirate
Did
word.
you come across a turgid member?
Don't
I have not used turgid. I don't think. What? No, I think I did. I think I did turgid because I like
Vocabulary.
words. I like
I
vocabulary.
think there was a time period where turgid was like maybe a word pushed by a certain publisher because I ran into a series where it was turgid nipples. I'm like,
It was either Berkeley Small or Kathleen Woodowis. It was back there. You would get some of those. There would be. And I'm right. You mentioned the pirate stories. So the first book in the pirate series is contemporary because they're finding the wreckage. The next 3 books are the pirates. So they set back. So I had to slip from writing initially contemporary language in the first book, and then go back to a more 1804 language, and then pirates. And my editor was cracking up. She's like, and I said, just not a big historical romance reader. And I said, that's one of my favorite genres to read, which I've not been reading for the last few years because when I'm writing something, I don't read anything like that because I don't want to pick up a phrase by accident. So I think
next thing you know, you're plagiarizing and you didn't even intend to.
I got a story about that all day. But I think for me, in terms of describing body parts and the sexual act, I don't get into specifically what's happening, like a wrinkle here. I might mention that she sucks her stomach in, or but I've already built into the character that this one character, Naomi, is very sensitive about her body because of her ex-husband and the way he made fun of her. But most of them, it's just an acceptance of, they're making love and they move in a certain way, and I craft the love scene either out of memory, or how I would think I would be comfortable doing something, because I'm 72 now, so I've only had one book where the characters were in that age group. So, and with the 40-ish, with the 40, the brides, I was checking with Leah, about, do people say this? Would somebody do this? Or, what kind of birth control is the thing now? Do I have to think about that? So it's good to have someone who's within the seasoned romance age group, but of the younger end of the span. So she gives me a lot of my tips, or she's my, okay, what music are they listening to?
And even just knowing what's going on, and how do they online date these days, kind of thing.
Yeah. And what's safe and what's not, and what do you share, and but part of it's what I'm experiencing because I'm of a certain age and dated at a certain age, even though it was a while ago. And then there's research; you can find anything, and there's always somebody you can ask if you're lucky. You have people who will fill you in on the details, and I think it resonates well with an audience. I think. I've been at book signings and the 25-year-olds are coming by, and they usually want to know, they want fantasy romance Mafia or what's the other one? Motorcycle Club.
Yeah.
And I don't have any of that. I know some authors who write fabulous, and I'd say, okay, well, go find this person or look for this person online. That's not me. Well, what do you write? And I tell them, and these 20, you're like, all right, here, take a car coaster. You know, I'll see you in 20 years.
Imagine your mom.
You know, have an older sister or something. But you know, I'm not. I mean, my books aren't. I think some books are for anybody.
Yeah.
You know, but all of us have a slot. You know, I mean, not
Yes, we
everybody
do.
reads shapeshifters. You know, not everybody reads seasoned romance. Not everybody reads, you know, the planet in this galaxy and what's going
Monster
on there.
romance. Yeah, there's like, yeah.
Apparently, there is there's a very hardcore group of pirate lovers,
Yes.
dedicated but small. This is not. I mean, I'm like, who wouldn't want to read a pirate romance? My God! But apparently. You know, some people are not into a historical romance or pirates, and pirates is a bit of a difficulty because pirates are not good guys. I mean, you got to have a kind-hearted pirate. You know, he's probably dead, so you gotta kind of balance where his, you know, it is. So I found where I can have my guys be violent because what they're basically the ships they really go after are the ships transporting people from Africa, and they take those ships, and those were really fast ships. So frankly, a lot of pirates took those ships and turned them into pirate ships because they were built for speed and capacity. Sadly, but so
For rum.
yeah,
Capacity for rum. Right?
well, and Bibles and then other people. So you can find ways to show their good side, even though you can do their fierce side. Like one of my pirates is fighting the Barbary pirates to free the American hostages in 1804. So good guy, but you know, on the way out, they blast some really nasty pirates into the sea and get all the booty, and
So morally gray.
nobody's all good or all bad, but you know, I think with as writers, we know, you know, I mean, it's we're writing fiction.
Yeah.
You know, when you're writing memoir, that's another thing, but or nonfiction, it's another thing. But when you're writing fiction, like you said, you have somebody who can, or you were saying talking about somebody who can conjure the answer.
Oh, yes.
You know, or that you have your guys conjure the clothes they're going to shift back into. You know, we can play with a few things, you know, and make people more idealized, I think, but still human. But I think we've done the seasoned romance boardroom here for, I don't know, like 6-7 years anyway. And every conference we go to, I'm doing some kind of seasoned romance workshop or something. And I think it's a popular genre. I still think it doesn't get much respect
I agree. Yeah.
from the traditional publishers. So we're kind of on our own. We have to talk it up and promote it as best we can. But I'm going to keep writing it. I mean, my son, he's not a reader, which is hard to believe coming from our family, is like, are you still? How many other books are you going to write? And I said, well, I've got 9 in my head right now. Oh my God, Mom! You know.
But they're all having sex, so they keep populating.
Well, actually, a book I wrote, the country singer and the journalist, she had a son who was getting ready to have his bar mitzvah when the book came out, and now I've calculated the years, and he's old enough to be 35, and he's quit his job as a Manhattan DA, and he's getting his own book.
Oh,
So
awesome.
you think a book is done. I mean, I used to say I'm never going to write. I can't write a series. I never could keep track of everybody. And now everything is a series. And Leah will laugh. Tell them what you got me for Hanukkah a couple of years ago when I was starting the Pirates.
But you asked for it. She found this giant whiteboard at I think Staples
on a pedestal
at
with
Staples.
wheels.
yeah.
With wheels or
That's
rolls
what she
around.
wanted.
It rolls around.
And pull it over here.
Yeah.
Now oh yeah.
Comes to the bathroom and the kitchen with
She
you. It's
can't
like,
do
no,
that.
it's just what uses upon you, yes.
But sometimes it's right next to me. I'm writing stuff on it, and then sometimes it's pushed over here because I've got to get into stuff there. It is money. I got to tell you. I got the map of the coast of Maine clipped to it, so I can see where I've got them going. I love it. It's one of the best presents in the world. I got multicolored pens for different
Yeah.
characters.
Of course.
Oh, I recommend it. If you're writing a series and it's getting a little complicated, because I got everything in a book,
Because
you
they
know?
do, yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to flip around and find where everything is. But I would say that we owe a lot of what has happened with Seasoned Romance to Karen Booth and to Roxy and St. Clair for just those 3 books.
I'm going to put your name out there though, because you took it to the people. You took it to the man. You did not hold back or be like, okay, pump me up. I mean, you're like, no, I'm going to go ask them. I'm going to confront them. And that to me is, as a baby author who decided she was writing seasoned romance. I wasn't like, I was like, I'm not writing about a 22-year-old. And, you were truly one of my favorite people. And I was just like, I'm just going to follow along behind her. I'm just going to march, but I'm going to wave the flag along.
Well, we've had a lot of support, like
We
people
really
like you.
have.
Everybody has backed us up, and I think it's become more of an accepted genre. I think more people are beginning to recognize it. We still have to keep pushing, but as I said, I had the luxury of this was not going to put food on the table for my family. I have my arbitration practice, and thank you God for the state of New York and a nice retirement system. So I can write what I want. And I had, as you were talking about, Entangled, other publishers were saying, well, could you, maybe if you did this, if you made them this age, and this was the, and I'm like,
Yeah, I ran into some of those in pitches. Could you make her younger and thinner, and but it was but it was like, no, that's not who she is. I mean, and a character, but especially I think a woman at 36 is very different than a woman at 22. And I wanted her to have these experiences and these weights upon her, and the emotional scars, and all these things to make the story bigger. But I have been very happy with it, and screw the ones that don't.
Well, and I think that, when we're talking about, a strong female lead, I think that there's a difference between a woman who has experienced life and has that internal strength because of that, as opposed to somebody who's only really just beginning life and she's a strong female lead. No, I just think she's just kind of doesn't even, like, maybe she's just like a little naive to what so then her moral strength is less because she's been through the fire and survived it, and more just she didn't know what she didn't know yet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know what? I write strong women because I have known strong women.
You are a strong woman.
I've tried to be a strong woman.
You've raised
tried to raise a strong woman, which she has far surpassed anything I ever dreamed. But I don't write emasculated men. Some of my books, it's like a battle of the wills because it's two mighty forces meeting. Some, it's a strong woman that has some needs and meets a man who recognizes the needs and is that kind of a man who can be a strong man but can be supportive and not feel like his masculinity is being compromised. So I write men like my late husband. I write men like men friends I have, that I respect and admire, and I write strong women, and I write the men who are strong because to be, because there's too much, just like we're talking about women's roles, there's that image of men, they can't cry, they have to do this, they have to do that, they can't do the dishes, they're not supposed to take care of the baby. There's still that image permeating around. So I think to be a man who is a supportive partner, takes a lot of strength because you're going against the norm in a lot of places. So that's what I'm trying to write the world the way I see it and the way I would like it to be for people, for good people, for people who are thinking of themselves and trying to make a life and trying to do good, but also cognizant of what is happening in the world around them and are trying to deal with that too.
This is a perfect place to end a fantastic interview with truly one of the OGs on the front line of bringing seasoned romance to our readers, but also just a woman who has lived it and to tell the story.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Well, I treasure your friendship beyond words.
Okay,
and
now I'm gonna get water.
She said like that.
when you asked me if I wanted to, I was like, whoa, yeah, oh my, yes. What will I say? I'll think of something. I'm a writer. I can come up with words, right?
Well, and the funny thing, I told them, I'm like, number one, Morgan, because she's the OG. I mean, I was just like, no, and I was like, if we're not doing her, then we ain't doing it.
Well, how impressed your little grandson is going to be because now he wants to do podcasts.
Yes, I have my grandson want to do podcasts. The 9-year-old and the 6-year-old.
No, I think.
Whereas the 9-year-old wants to do podcasts about Greek mythology. So
Okay.
honey, I don't know how
We'll
long
do
we're
that.
on the 9-year-olds, but let's go for it.
My son is 10. His favorite podcast is
it Greeking
National
Out?
Geographic. Yes, it's
That's
Greeking
it.
Out.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
did you know that in back in the 70s, our reading material in 3rd grade was all about Greek mythology. And I mean, I was like, and now I look back because my high school taught Latin. And we went to like the state Latin conference, and it was like such a big deal that like we knew all these Greek gods. And then when I went to IU, I took this art appreciation course, and the first day she gave us like this cultural examination to kind of see like where people are and what's lacking. And I tested really well, and I got a phone call from to come see her in her office. I thought, I'm like, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything.
The college teacher professor is always like, what did I do?
She wanted to know where I went to school. Could not, and I'm like, I had 63 people in my graduating class for this and she couldn't believe that I had this knowledge, and it was like, well, I'm really not that smart. I just like ask a lot of questions and talk to a lot of people. I mean, I'm like, these other kids that had tested really high, like they went to Park Tudor, a big private school in Indy. They're like, they had like these very, very elite educated. Me, probably my AC/DC T-shirt. Probably a little hungover.
Weren't we all in college?
But it's just like, I can't explain it. I'm like, kind of like
You bring up a great point about a teacher that you had in school opened this door, and I have to say, I think my mom was a great reader. My father was a great storyteller, but I grew up, as I've said to you, in this little town in northern New York, and went to public school. I had some amazing teachers, and they were door openers and just showed the world that was possible. And I owe so much of everything I've accomplished to, the librarian at the elementary school. My 6th grade teacher was the first male teacher in elementary school. Just the whole role model of that. There was, a history teacher in middle school.
Think of all the kids that you're one day substituting changed their lives.
You have no idea. But you have you have no idea what you might do, and you don't even think about it. And some kid, I've heard this from so many teacher friends, and a kid comes back, is now a colonel in the army or something, and says, I owe it all to you because you told me about X, and I got interested in it, and that opened all these doors for me. You just have no idea how I think teachers are rock stars.
Now, was your day school all girls or was it co-ed?
It was all girls, yeah.
Did you wear a uniform?
No, we,
I'm fascinated.
I had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I wore like sweatpants and t-shirts. That was my uniform. But it was nice because there were no boys, so we were dressing up, and there was the competition was different. It was competitive. It was very competitive. But
Girls competitive.
shocking. But the competition was more academic. It was more who's the smart, like who can be smart, who can get this answer, who can get the better scores, and not who can impress the boys.
Yeah.
And it was really great. It was a really great experience. And thinking about professors who changed your life. My freshman year history class, I'm coming from a big suburban school system where you're mostly doing Scantrons. Every once in a while you might write an essay. And my first history test is a paragraph, and you had to defend, attack, or modify it in 500 to 600 words.
Oh.
And I was like, I have no idea. What am I doing with this thing?
It's C,
Yeah,
right?
right. I was like, where's the
D,
bubbles?
all of the above, yeah, right? Yeah.
So, and it really, I think that class really taught me critical thinking.
I was going to say it taught you how to think.
Yeah.
Oh, I had posted a thing I read, I think in Forbes, that said that because of AI, colleges were looking at going back to the Blue Book.
Yes.
And I have so many Blue Book memories
Yes.
in college, because almost all, it seemed like a lot of my exams were all Blue Book.
So many blue
Well,
books.
English major, so yeah, they were all,
Yeah.
yeah.
Tend to be wordy, always tended to be wordy, and you're trying to write a,
I need another.
American Presidency
Yeah.
Blue Book, and you,
I just remember one year, a final exam, it was right before Christmas, and I had a terrible head cold, and bending over writing, and I burned through all the Kleenexes, and you could not be digging in your backpack
Oh,
for
no.
more,
Oh,
because you would be, I don't know how you would be cheating to do the Blue Book, but anyway, so I'm like wiping on my sleeve and everything, and I remember like I'm almost done, and like some snot drops fall on the Blue Book, and I'm thinking,
Serves them right.
yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm dry together because I got really good stuff right there. No, I just remember, I
We were
was
just so happy you were crying, right?
I was just like, oh my God, and there's nothing worse when you have that head cold, and it's just, and I just remember walking back to my dorm and just being like, oh my God, that had to be the worst experience ever. Yeah, really,
Right.
so far. But I do, I remember that night, because I was so upset, because I just made some really good points, right? I mean, finally I got into it, and I figured out really what I was getting at, and I was like, great.
That 500 to 600 word limit almost did me in. I think everything that could be, I think I had entire sentences that were hyphenated to try to make it one word. Any contraction I could come up with. And I remember there's one, and I didn't work it. I came in and I'm like, it's 780 words, and you did every single one of them. Fail me if you want to.
Yep.
I'm done. Like, I cannot. And next year he raised the word count from to 700 to 800. Yeah.
I love that. I love hearing stories from like people that went to different kinds of schools than me, because mine, it was a country school. It wasn't that great. I mean,
Well, apparently it was a pretty, she's
Better than
country
you-
school.
you're getting better.
I too, though, I will say this, both my grandparents were born in 1900, and they each were in college, and then they eloped to New York City and to go to college.
there's a
So, and then they taught at Butler, and they went on and were both writers. So, like, I don't remember, I thought everyone just knew how to read like you knew how to read, because they taught me to read, like, but honest to God, if I showed an interest in any subject, they either drove me somewhere where I could learn about it, or took me to the Indiana State Library, and my grandmother, who was like 5'2", would like just harass the librarian until she could bring me books, even though I'm a little kid, but bring me books so I could learn about something. I mean, their whole thing was, you want to learn about how to make a nail, as a pioneer. We are going to take you somewhere where we can get you a
Go to
blacksmith.
Clara Prairie.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, it was just so, I just wanted to learn stuff, and I'm like the one that goes down the Google rabbit hole trying to learn something, and you
Thank
want.
goodness it's Google and not like the Indiana University card catalog, like,
Or I didn't,
card catalog.
or I didn't get to sit to the porn. Okay, I'll tell you the story of this. We did a signing in Indy over a month ago, and I invited a friend from the beauty salon where I used to work, and she and her husband have a very active sex life, so I'm like, okay. And then another couple, she's a librarian, but they're in their 30s, and then my husband and our best friend who's in her 70s. Well, first of all 3 different groups were totally freaked out because I guess at one of the authors' tables, there was quite the selection of dildos. And as my friend Anna says, just sitting out there like by your pin and everything.
Well, it was the first table you walk past,
Whoa.
too. So
That's not always a good placement, but
So then our friend Janice, who does not look her, I mean, she's little, she's cute, she's still a cheerleader, and my husband are wandering around. And the author decides to engage in a conversation with Janice. And Janice has already told him that, his wife's signing up there and we're just walking around. So the author proceeds to say to Janice, well, you look like you like cream pie. And Janice doesn't know what she's talking about. And the lady goes, I bet you want him to give you a cream pie. And she goes, well, he bakes, but he bakes cakes. So anyway, the author wouldn't get off of this. So anyway, on the way home, she's like, what did that mean? And he's like, just Google it. So it takes her to Pornhub. So she's totally freaked out. They didn't tell me until the Monday after because I was furious because, poor Janice is humiliated now because, all of this is going on. But So be careful where you look on Google.
people, we've all, back a long while ago when I was first writing and I'd look up something and I would end up on these Japanese porn sites and then the screen would just be like they'd be just and I would like pull the plug on the computer. I didn't know what to do. Oh my goodness. I had to look. I was looking up what did recently for the pirates, and the last book is it's a male romance. So I had to look up some technical things like lubrication. What's used for lubrication
back
in
then.
1804,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to craft an inquiry that's going to get me there. And I'm going all these other places. Finally, I get to where it's a relatively scholarly piece about hygiene in the 1800s. And
Or lack thereof.
And that apparently spit was the
that
lube
would
of
be my
choice.
guess. Yeah.
And I had to explain it to my editor. She was like, I said, no, go look. Here's the site. Go look it up. It's spit. I'm telling you right now, it's spit. But the stuff that was then coming in was hysterical. But I must have been doing that for half an afternoon, because it was important. I'm writing a love scene. I want him to do certain things. Lube's going to be necessary. And trying to find it.
Well, if you care for your partner,
Right, and it's necessary, right.
It's
more like a hate fuck could be one thing, but
it's 2 pirates. It's 2 men, and they're gay, but given the times, the only experiences they've ever had were kind of like very quick and clandestine in an alley or something. They've never made love, either of them, ever. Didn't even think it was possible. And now they're together in a place where they can, and they the older man had a professor at Oxford who introduced him to manly love, but so he had a little bit more of a clue. But the other man had never been kissed, so it was writing. I think it's one of the most beautiful love scenes I ever wrote. But I wanted to make sure I got it correct and was comfortable. Nobody was going to be ouch, And so it was an adventure. But a half an hour. I got about 500 words written that day.
Well, and thank goodness for the internet, so we can from our desk chair search this, even if we happen upon some things that don't necessarily answer our question.
But knowledge is knowledge.
And knowledge is knowledge.
my best friend, my assistant, I'm probably probably the thing in my life I'm most proud of is he had been closeted and raised very Catholic, and after 3 years talking to his therapist, they decided that I would be the one that he would come out to first. And we did it at McAllister's Deli, and I totally ruined it because I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, you weren't shot. I'm like, oh no, I knew. So but then I did the whole, okay, let's talk. But I was like, you're gorgeous, you have a great job, you own your own house, and you have a little white fluffy dog, and you never mention going on a date, and you show no girl's interest. Okay. I mean, I was just like, okay, knew it a long time before, but yeah. But I was his first to tell, and then he did eventually tell his family, and they were totally fine, except they were devastated that he did not feel he could share that with them so much earlier.
That's what breaks my heart, is that first of all it took him 3 years to kind of get up the nerve and talk with the therapist about how he was going to do that.
I was fortunate that I had a guy I worked with who was gay. He's passed now, bless his heart. I had hired him as our tech guy, and we got to be very close. And I was going through my dating stage at that time, so things were a little crazy. And we both had labs, and we loved it. So he gave me this beautiful lab poster in my office for my birthday. So his birthday was coming up, and I said, okay, Fred, here's the deal. I got 2 ideas for your birthday. Tell me what you think you might prefer. A copy of the lab poster that you gave me because you said you loved it so much you almost didn't give it to me, or a blowjob. And he's like, the poster. And I'm like, great, because I already bought the damn poster. So then he
I've been doing his jaw
about
exercises.
About a week later, he asked me out. He said, let's go have lunch. We go out for lunch. And he's like fussy. I mean, he's fidgeting and everything. I'm like, what's going on? He said, well, I got to tell you something. And I said, what? And I said, what? And he goes, and he's like, and I'm thinking, if you're going to quit, I'm going to tell you, because we couldn't find a tech guy forever. We finally got, and he goes, I'm gay. And my reaction was, are you sure? And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay. And he says, okay? I said, yeah, okay. And he goes,
Do you want a parade?
So he says to me, I felt like I might have hurt your feelings when I said I didn't want a blowjob. And I really had to think about it. I haven't ever come out to anybody at work that I've worked with ever, but I felt I owed you an explanation. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I said, oh, honey, you could have stayed in the closet. I was just joking. There was no way I already did a blowjob. I already bought the poster.
He agonized over
I
that.
said, oh my God, I'm so sorry.